We are a program called TechWorks, and we exist because of a program named Trade. So let's just explain who we are and what we do. Our agency that writes our paychecks is Adapt Community Network. We were previously known as United Cerebral Palsy of New York City, and we still are the affiliate, the New York City affiliate for this program organization. But it's been a long time since we've only assisted people with cerebral palsy and related disabilities. Our individuals in various programs with developmental disabilities have a much wider range of conditions and needs. And we've always been a much broader topic than just cerebral palsy alone because of our partnership with Trade. Trade starts out with the federal act. The original act was called Technology-Related Assistance for Individuals with Disabilities. When it was reauthorized, it changed to the Assistive Technology Act. New York State kept the name Trade for their program. At the state, I'm going to stop 1 minute. I know Melinda listens in sometimes. Is Melinda from Trade here?
I don't see her.
Okay, sorry about that. At the state level, it's administered by the New York State Justice Center and has some other funding, including some collaborations that we have with other state agencies. And there are 12 regional trade centers. I'm going to apologize to the people here. I am mostly used to presenting in New York City, of course. So there's some things I probably should have changed, but it just didn't occur to me when I went over this yesterday. If anybody needs to find out the regional trade center for their counties, feel free to let us know and we will get that information for you, or you can go to, well, we can, at the end, we can give you the information, their website where you can go find the center for you guys. That means that we provide a bunch of free public service to anybody with a disability, whether it's babies and people with developmental disabilities through age 21, or people who have acquired a disability at an older age. We exist because there are way too many people, individuals with disabilities themselves, as well as the professionals that support them. There aren't enough people who understand and are aware and know about all the assistive technology that can make such a difference in people's lives. So we exist to help with that. So anybody with a disability or anybody supporting an individual with a disability can go to a trade center for assistance. We do a variety of services. And these slides, Pete is putting the link to these slides in chat. It is a bit.ly link. If you're not familiar with that, it just makes it easier to type in it if you're not going to click on a link to get to what I'm sending you to. What it is a Dropbox folder, so it has a number of items in it. It has our flyers in New York City regional area. It has some information about funding for assistive technology from OPWDD, and it has the PDFs of these presentations.
Mary Beth, can I pause you 1 sec?
Sure.
I'm not sure, the presentation was clear before and then it seemed like the slides got blurry. I can't read what's on the screen. Do you guys know if you can address that?
Okay, I think we're gonna tank using the screen on the iPad. Should I just switch out the,
Looks clear on my end.
I can see that it's clear on your screen too, and then for some reason on ours here, as the viewers, it's blurry, but like Pete, when I look at your, screen right now, it's clear, but on the blow up, it's blurry.
okay, let's tank the iPad and see if that helps. Should I just unplug it?
Yeah, we can disable the iPad source.
Does that help?
It still looks the same on my end.
Okay, so it's, so you can see it on our picture.
Yeah, like your
own
picture right
screen
here is
blurry.
clear. And then when you watch it as speaker view, the slides are just really blurry.
Okay, Pete's working on that.
right.
So you'll have this information about our services, and I'll just say it quickly. It's not the focus of today, but it's worth finding out about your trade center.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary Beth.
We do a number of things like demonstrations, so we can assist you with trying out something so you really get a sense of what works for you, and compare items that are the same. We do short-term loans. All the trade centers do the same services. We do short-term loans primarily for decision-making purposes. In certain cases, we can leave loans out for longer periods of time. If, for example, there's a delay in the funding source, and if something has been donated to us, because we're on like the New York City general information line sends people to us if they call them looking for where to donate assistive technology and durable medical equipment kinds of things. So we get a lot of donations in, and those things we can donate right out. We do public awareness, doing tabling and everything, in addition to trainings on specific topics. And we also do a great deal of information and assistance services, best practices, sources for things, that kind of stuff. You will have our contact information and our way to, and okay, these are programs specific to, you can skip through the share slides, and you have our contact information. The 175 Lawrence Avenue is our main site. We have another one in Manhattan, and we do ask people to contact us through email. If it's for service, then we want it to come through our TechWorks at adaptcommunitynetwork.org, but we do provide a phone number. And if it's specific to this topic, please just do email me directly. You'll get a quicker answer, and I'll know who you are, which is M for Mary Beth, Fry, F-R-E-Y, all one word. And it's at and our agency name. So let's keep going. And we are going to move into our content. Funding is problematic as finding that most appropriate tool for somebody to use. Just like there are many different solutions to that, you can't access your computer, you can't speak, you need assistance with moving around in space, either supported walking or wheeled mobility. There are so many different things that get considered in that decision-making process. And one of them has to be, how are we gonna get this paid for? Are you still blurry?
Sorry, it's a
Are
little
you still blurry?
a little bit, but this is much easier to read.
Okay. Pete, should I try my resolution?
I don't think so. I can scale it down here. I think it's just the internet's not cooperating today.
Can you Ethernet us?
Yeah, I'm gonna plug.
Okay,
wireless.
if you'll be tolerant of our, what do you have it on, the cable modem or guest?
I tried both.
Okay. Networks, you know how it goes.
Absolutely. Take your time. Thank you.
Hold on a minute. Let me just turn off the fact that it seems like it's advancing by itself. There you go. So okay, so thank you for your patience. Funding, there are at least 6 different kinds of funding sources that we're aware of, and some more. And a lot of it comes down to the severity of a person's disability. I'm quite aware that with spina bifida, the majority of individuals with spina bifida might be limited to lower limb difficulties and other medical conditions, of course, but in terms of assistive technology and durable medical equipment use. But of course, that depends on whether or not there's hydrocephaly, whether or not there's severe seizures, and the fact that just we're having spina bifida doesn't exempt you from having other familial and environmental kinds of disabilities as well. People can, unrelated to spina bifida, have something of an intellectual disability, learning disability, sensory loss, or whatever. It can exist concurrently, so that don't just think of what you're looking for assistive technology for the actual spina bifida condition. You guys, though, are most up. Okay, before I go into this, these are pictures, and I hope you can see them. I got into this field because my mother worked with children with physical disabilities. And when this was back in the 70s, when families came to their school, they got handed blueprints for how to build adaptive equipment to use with their child, standing boxes and adapted toys and stuff. Do it yourself has been going on for a long, long time. And in some cases is either the cheapest way to get it, the fastest way to get it, the most personalized way to get it. So please never, ever forget that there's a lot of do-it-yourselfing going on. OTs are really big on it. You'll see some of it with alternative communication. If you have children in school-age programs or whatever programs, and they, for whatever reason, have difficulty with speech, you might see paper-based materials and stuff. We've been doing do-it-yourself for a while. We and many other places now have additional tools like 3D printers. And can you switch me off to a mixed? Give me the camera. Just to give you a small idea. We can do, I'm gonna hold this in front. This is to go on a wheelchair, and you have your cup holder. This was 3D printed. There are a variety of hand use tools you can buy, but we can also 3D print cuffs and other sorts of grasps that the utensil is just slid right into it. So if somebody can move their arm freely, but doesn't really have good control of their hand for whatever reason, they can use some of these tools. We've also printed things like Can you try putting me on the camera at this point? I'm scared, but let's see.
Overhead will work.
Yeah, give me the overhead. Okay, so, good. There we go. Let me zoom into that. Zoom slow. So this uses the capacitive tip. And for people who have problems with using their hands for whatever reason, this can be an excellent access. We've used it with people with like arthrogryposis whose hands tend to be in a different kind of position. We've also printed a lot of communication key guards, communication device key guards. Pretty much everybody is for higher end systems using, can I just get the regular camera back? There's a lot of iPad sorts of solutions, and for people with access issues, having that key guard so that your fingers aren't pressing things wrong is a really good thing. So whether, it doesn't matter how expensive it is, there is no one best thing. Everything comes down to the person, and then we have to figure out how to get it to them. So when you're talking about health insurance coverage, we're talking about durable medical equipment, okay? Computer. Normally I have a little deck over here that I can change myself, so we apologize for this. So you have to be eligible for whichever kind of coverage it is you have, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, which is for military families, dependents, and then the more traditional, what people think of the insurance coverage you get from like your job. You will also sometimes see, even though people think of Medicare as older, offspring of individuals can receive Medicare as a beneficiary of that parent's account. Then you have to worry about things being covered. It's not automatic. It depends on the benefit category. It depends on that insurance that you have. We don't call it assistive technology when we're talking about durable medical equipment. It is things that are specifically able to withstand repeated use for extended times, primarily to serve a medical purpose. So you have spina bifida, therefore you may be non-ambulatory, therefore we're treating the spina bifida by providing an alternate to something the individual can't do. It can't be something that everybody uses. The example I'll give is, I'll point at it when, can I have my screen back, my camera? Okay, so this device, oops. Pick it up. This communication device is a very high-end one. It uses an eye gaze camera for people who do not have control of their limbs or their head. And this baby is $15,000 because the base device itself is $7,000, and then the camera is $7,000. And it's on a Windows platform. There's a lot of things in communication that are on Windows tablets, iPads, and some Android, but they seem to be getting away from the Android. However, when it's purchased by health insurance, you are locked out of the computer part of it. You can't put other apps on there. You can't go search the internet for something, because that's what everybody does with a computer or laptop or tablet. The companies that make these devices do sell a code. It's usually very reasonable, like $50, that unlocks the device so that you can also use it as a computer. But it's worth keeping in mind when you start. And it's worth keeping in mind that you don't automatically want to get it unlocked. It depends on the user. There are sometimes other alternatives, such as we worked with an individual who used a communication device. She was non-literate because of the belief system at the time she was younger, and she wants to use the computer and is quite capable of using the computer. But we were better off connecting her laptop to her communication device, because that could then put her sentences that she created using picture symbols onto the computer. So just keep in mind, it's not something you always want to do. And it has to be suitable for use in the home. And it's expanded a little bit to some community access, but it's not about being used in a work setting. It's not about being used just in school. It's about that this extends into your home life. And so things like wheelchairs and strollers and standers and gait trainers and crutches and all the things that you might use for mobility, as well as stuff that you would use for communication deficit related to a medical condition, qualify under that. Government programs, people with physical disabilities, the goal used to always be get you on plain old, no frills Medicaid, because you don't have any copays, you don't have to worry about lifelong limits like you do with some of the private health insurances. But everything has gone managed at this point, and it's still worth investigating if you qualify for Medicaid for the individual with the disability, even if the family itself would not qualify. So these things that we're buying must be medically necessary. It starts out with an evaluation and a report by a therapist. What impairment results from the underlying illness, injury, or medical condition, and you need to write reports just so as a clinician. So most of the companies that sell things that can be funded through durable medical equipment have a funding assist kind of department. Okay, can we go back to the slides?
The deck works
Okay.
now.
The deck works now. Oh, thank you. I have my deck back. I'm so excited. The report is submitted to the doctor, and then is the text clear at this point, folks?
Still the same.
Still the same.
We have the
Okay.
slides though, so it helps. You can sort of put them up side by side.
Good. Okay. I'm sorry. We
worries.
thought that the Ethernet would solve this, but no.
All good.
In any case, in order to get purchased, first by the therapist, then by the doctor, it has to be dated after that report. The doctor has to review that report because the prescription must include every accessory or add-on that that individual needs. You can't go back and fix this after the fact. It has to be done at the beginning, or they're going to want to know what's changed about this person's condition that requires a change in equipment. So that's plain old health insurance, but for individuals with disabilities who are in Medicaid programs, a lot of times they're on what's called a waiver program. A waiver means that some assets and things are loosened a little bit because your need is not strictly financial. The medical thing adds to it. And it provides some additional services that wouldn't normally be provided by your health insurance. In New York State, there are a few of them through OPWDD, people with individuals with disability, with developmental disabilities, with, I think it's a 70, there has to be some significant degree of disability. Quite frequently, an individual who simply has, I'm sorry, I don't mean simply as in it doesn't make your life complicated, but if they're limited to lower limb problems, they may not qualify because functionally they can still perform most staff. So it depends on the individual and the functioning level to qualify for OPWDD services, such as their waiver services. There's for people with traumatic brain injury, and then also, which can work for anybody who wasn't in an OPWDD system, if once you're out on your own, an individual and living your own life, if your ability to access things you need in your own home and all that kind of stuff is not sufficient, that it puts you at risk of going into a nursing home, that's also a category of waiver services. Basically, all these things are saying is that it's inhumane to make people live in an institution if they do not choose to do so. It's return to community. It was the Olmstead Act. And in fact, Medicaid has found that it is a real cost savings for them to provide services to people living in their own communities rather than institutions like nursing homes and developmental centers, etc. Environmental modification can be very important for anybody in a wheelchair, as well as some people with supported walking. And there are other reasons for environmental modifications, but access money to do home modifications are available. They can be available through one of those waiver services, and then there's an additional thing out of Department of Housing called Access to Home that you have the address here, can do things like roll-in showers and ramps and wheelchair lifts and those kinds of things. There's limits to it. It is related to financial need, but it's a pretty generous maximum salaries, assets. And if you do not own your own home, there has to be an agreement by the owner to go forward with this kind of thing. Now we get into the age-related things in early intervention. I apologized already, but I don't think many of you were on when I did. We're used to presenting in New York City, and there's a couple of differences between us and New York State. And I'm sorry it didn't occur to me till the last minute that I was not talking to New York City. And I should have changed these things. Basically, they're the same. I'll mention where they're different. Early intervention and the IEP stuff is a little bit different for you than it is for us down here. But in any case, assistive technology and durable medical equipment is something that can be obtained through early intervention program. They, at the state level, recommend that the local trade program gets requested to loan somebody something, because you want to try something out before you buy it. There's many times that money is misspent, and that's a real shame. In New York City, people are mandated to contact us before they proceed with submitting a medical justification to their early intervention program. You don't say, if you're talking about wheelchairs, I'm not going to say I want a quickie zippy. I'm going to say I need a pediatric tilt in space chair that has the option for whatever laterals and head prompts that I want. Clinicians get pretty good at describing a program, a piece of equipment. There's like standards, there's only certain ones that give you some shoulder support. And so people know how to write for that. Whenever a lifetime sort of service provides funding, it has to be related to the functional outcomes for that service. If the individual cannot use their hands to self-feed, then that, in addition to the items being purchased, we do need to see that on the IFSP. And that also means that people who wait till the last minute in early intervention are preventing their individuals from getting the DME and assistive technology they need, because this is not about transition. This is not about preparing them for the fact they're going out to preschool. This is about providing the resources an individual needs to meet the goals on their IFSP. Generally, service providers can do their own evaluations. But I know in New York, and I am assuming throughout the state, there are some clinics authorized. If a clinician is not yet comfortable with doing their own evaluations. So you submit the medical justification, there's of course a wait for that, and then equipment can be purchased. Once you're talking about kids who qualify for special education services and have an IEP, by law, IEPs must consider assistive technology. It was the 2004 reauthorization of the Individuals with Education Act. What is it called again? I forget these things. Education. It's been called so many things since I've worked in the field, but the IDEA, that's the one it's called now. Generally, whether in New York City, but I'm assuming within BOCES as well, evaluations can also be provided by those clinicians, at least clinicians that work for that department. Many times, school kids with more significant needs might be referred to not-for-profits like ours who have contracts with the state ed department. And in some cases, they're not going to accept evaluations from those clinicians. But if that's true, then they will, like New York City, have evaluation teams that can help out. It's mean to say performing SEAL, and I don't mean it in a mean way, but when that evaluation happens, there should already be some skills. They're not going to fund this because it's a nice idea. They're going to fund this because this person is showing potential to use this tool, or something else they did showed potential to use this tool to meet their IEP goals. This is, as much as there's overlap with home, mostly this is coming down to all these mandated services, whether they're therapy or devices, are to improve in performance in the classroom. That's what the goal is. So once that process has gone through, then the recommended AT is added on the IEP with usage goals. No matter what area you're in, keep in mind that you can't throw many devices in front of a kid and be done with your job. There are many, if you're getting a manual wheelchair, the people who sold it to you can put you in the wheelchair, go, here's your brakes, here's the safety checklist that you or somebody else should do. Don't lean too far to the side, don't lean too far front. be careful going over bumps, and you're going to be done with your training for that device. There are many other things that you must have assistive technology services for, in addition to the devices themselves. So just keep that in mind. I believe the reasonable quote from one of the experts in AAC is giving somebody a communication device makes them no more guaranteed to be an effective communicator than giving me a piano would guarantee that I'm going to be a fabulous piano player. It's a tool, it needs to be learned. Even though the goal is to maximize ability to work at peer level in the classroom, if a kid needs something to do homework, if whatever, and if it is transportable, many devices can travel between home and school. It's gonna have to, it may have to be requested to be provided. And if people break things repeatedly, that sometimes that is removed as an option. These devices are owned by the local educational agency, which in your case would be BOCES. And that's why people with IEPs start transition planning at 14. It's that part of education allows kids to become accustomed to careers and to figure out for this individual what's going to come next after graduation. But things that have been mandated as assistive technology do need to find alternate funding sources. And if you're the parent of a child using assistive technology in a school, please make sure that they do have that transition plan during the school age, because I've met more than my fair share of people that used to be device users and it got dropped, and now the system for adults is making it more difficult for them to get it. Now, again, sometimes just being a wheelchair user is not going to qualify you for special education services. You may need accommodations, and those are generally going to come through the Rehab Act, specifically Section 504. So it requires those reasonable accommodations so that an individual with disabilities can access that full range of school programs and activities. And it might also provide money for training if new people need to learn about the device and they don't know it or whatever. Then as people age out of school programs, they may either go into the system run by OPWDD of day hab programs and supported employment and community hab without walls and all these other programs. If higher education or a competitive job are not considered reasonable for this individual at this time. But if that's not true, then people progress into what's called Access VR. And I will read this to you. It's Adult Career and Continuing Education Services, Voc Rehab. That's the arm of the New York State Education Department that helps people for this purpose. It's not for people with legal blindness or multiple disabilities. I'll get to that in a minute. There are some services that are free to everybody through Access VR, evaluations and job prep and job readiness kinds of classes and stuff. But when you actually need things, again, we're going to come down to financial qualification. But most people with developmental disabilities that I know usually qualify. And they use what's called core rehab services to get evaluations, devices, and training for the people who need them. So I've included, you'll see it in the handout that I get, the AT funding for Access VR. And it comes down to evaluation and training. And this reminds me that I did not mention, this is the only place you're going to find vehicle modification driver services. Modifications of vehicles are very hard to fund. It can be funded through those waiver programs, but there are restrictions on what you buy the vehicle. You're responsible for upkeep and everything on it, and your vehicle has to meet certain criteria to be eligible for. So access to vehicles can be a little problematic. Maybe through the waiver programs is the best way to go through for most people who qualify for them. There is another state agency through Family Services, I think is where it comes out of, and that's the Commission for the Blind. They tend to do their assistive technology services a little bit different because pretty much everybody who's blind is going to be using technology. But they have both general training and specific training if they need it. Once you are on a job, oh, and I should mention that I didn't, in addition to Access VR being a support to people in higher education, do not forget the school, the college and university offices that mean that service. They were always called disability services offices. People have been trying to get more human-friendly terms for it, but that's what it is. They have inventory of devices and they can loan out to students in their programs who need it. Sometimes you have to wait, but they're supposed to be able to do that. At the work level, to go back to the slides, there are some funding sources built into Social Security. And I am going to zoom through this. Is there anybody in here who is working at this point? There's only one person. Okay, so if you want more information about this, you can contact me directly. I can talk to you about things that might come through Social Security. I can talk to you about things that the employers can access. I can talk to you about, that's pretty much it for, and there's something lovely that allows you to, in your Social Security, your disability, you can set aside some of your money to work towards a plan, such as getting a vehicle to adapt. And they will, as long as you keep it separate and work towards meeting that goal that you've established for that past plan, they're going to just replace it. You're not going to lose any of your income over it, because saving up for things are very hard for people on limited and controlled incomes. There are other places to go for funding. If one of the previous ones, Veterans Affairs, Workers' Comp, Victims Compensation Board we've used with somebody, some of the disability specific support programs have loan libraries of their own, like ALS and Vision, I know have their own, and I think Spinal Cord Association. And if you're already within a service agency, you should find out if they have any program specific funding sources, because like ours does have some grant programs that people can recommend that an individual receiving services from us can get something purchased for them. Hearing aids are different, so if people need hearing aids, children are a little bit easier than adults, and hopefully Medicare is gonna go ahead and step up like they've been saying it's going to. In certain cases, people might exhaust the funding sources. In some of those cases, those do-it-yourself things might be useful. But in other cases, it takes money that you might not have. And there are two sources for low interest loans that you have on your sheet. And again, if you have any questions, you can contact me directly. So that's it. I